Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the John G. URLs podcast, without which life would be incomplete and have little or no meaning. I, of course, am your host, your steward on this trip, this ride. Who else? The Tommy else. Joining me, as always, from Skokie, Illinois, is the man on the beat, from JohnG'sBeat.com, Mr. John Robleski.
How are you, Tommy?
I'm all right, sir. I'm all right. How are you doing on this this fine day?
I'm excited. I'm excited about our guest.
You are?
Yeah.
Good.
Are we ready to jump into the introduction, or did you bring something else to the table?
Anytime I sit at a table, I've brought something else to the table.
You brought something else, all right. Yeah.
Get it? Get
it? Yeah. Dan has done a lot of voiceover work. He's done a lot of guest spots on radio. He's had his radio slots. He's done a lot of podcasts. He did a podcast with some Major League ball players. Currently, he's doing Barguments, which, as you indicated, is just silly, fun arguments. It's two people bring up an issue and then they battle it back and forth on the show. It's really a fun podcast. Maybe not as fun as ours, but it's right up there. And a lot of good stuff on social media too. He's also married to Jill Urchek, noted White Sox fan, who has done a lot of radio work. So between them, they're just truly radio legends in this town.
Well, great.
Without further ado, because I had some ado there. So without further ado, let's just welcome into our studios, Dan Levy. For the John G. URLs podcast, we are very happy to welcome into our studios Dan Levy. And if you've listened to any Chicago radio, any podcast around, you've heard this man's voice and this man's opinions. How are you, Dan?
Hey, guys. How are you? Thanks for letting me jump on the show with you.
It's good to meet you, sir.
We're happy to have you.
It's nice to have someone with a good mic.
I got a few.
It's a little bit of soundproofing, and yeah, you sound good.
Well, the guy's been a professional forever. You can't compare me to him.
No, well, trust me, I'm not.
This is what I have to deal with.
I'm liking this tandem right here. You guys talk to each other within the first 3 seconds. That's impressive.
Well, hence
what's impressive is if we made it that far before we had to get into it.
Well, this is why, as the host of Barguments, you're the perfect guy to bring on our podcast. And we definitely want to talk about Barguments. Tell everybody exactly what it is.
Barguments is a podcast that I kind of came up with the idea, and I think I'm one of the first people that came up with the name like 30 years ago. But It was just simply for, like, when I had a college radio show, we would just do a topic of, we called it a bargument, an argument you would have with your buddies at a bar.
Sure.
And then, the way radio came along and my career and blah, 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 I started doing these podcasts. And then since the pandemic, we all had to kind of shift our momentum home. And then when they started making us come back to work, I work for iHeart Total Traffic Network in Chicago, and they started making us come back. And I was like, man, I was kind of a little depressed because I was making more money at home, working from home, doing other gigs at the same time. And then when I kind of get in the car, sit in the office for 8 hours, you're kind of strapped, and I was kind of depressed because I knew I had to, now that I'm here, I'm like, I needed something to do. And then when I met one of the girls from Rock 95.5, she was like, they're pressuring her to do a podcast. And I was like, you know what? Her and I got along pretty well. So I was like, you know what? Let's, I've had this idea to do this podcast called Barguments. And then I explained it to him that it would just be, I got my buddy Joe, who's a writer with me, who is helping me do stuff, but he's kind of new to radio. And I was kind of trying to teach him how to we're in the process of actually writing a pilot of an idea that I've had for a long time that involves radio. Very cool. So when I would tell him these stories and things that it's kind of based on a lot of stories I know and I've heard, I wanted him to get the feel of who some of these people were and just the nutbags that radio people are.
Yeah.
So I explained them the idea. I said, me and her will kind of just bargain it. He's a very quiet guy. And so the idea was for him to pretty much kind of just lob the topics, keep score, and then move us on. And I know her and I would get into it. So we did 2 or 3 recorded ones. And then after the third one, the radio boss said he would just wanted just one for her and her only. He wanted just to have her own podcast, couldn't be on mine.
Right.
And I was like, all right, cool. Then I'm just gonna steal this thing.
Yeah.
And the third guest is just gonna change every week. And it's nice because I got, like I said, I got Joe who's on there with me, who's pretty knowledgeable and smart. And he's kind of learning the radio trade and kind of learning how to podcast, learning how to banter back and forth. I'm helping him with that. My older brother helps me with the questions because when we were doing it, I was coming up with them and some of Joe were, but they weren't always like hitting well. And he's like, yeah, just tell me who you got and I'll individualize it. I'm like, perfect. So
That's cool.
It's become this cool thing. We're now on episode 31. And because I've been in radio for 20 years, I know all kinds of different people. And I hate the job of booking guests. You guys know it.
Yeah.
I really do not enjoy it. But then you start to look down the catalog of people that I've known and people that I've done stuff with, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, cool, I have Exhibit or hip hop. I have Bill Weddington, I got Richard Roper, I've got, then I started going through all the radio people at the radio station. I was kind of getting to know people on 103.5 Kiss FM. There was Kaylin from the Fred Show. There was my buddy Abe, who was on the morning show. I had Leon Rogers from WGCI, and I had started getting Scoop Jackson, guys that I've been in the media with, and just kind of flexing this out. And like I said, luckily it's one of those things where my wife is on the radio, so I could snag her.
Yeah, sure.
One of my buddies, one of my best friends is Mark Brody on The Score.
Sure.
He is somebody I've done podcasts and all kinds of creative stuff with. And I know that when I'm like, man, someone just pulled down and I need to record this podcast today.
Yeah.
Like, hey, can you jump on 20 minutes? And he and I will banter. It'll be funny. And I can put it up there. And it's growing a pretty decent sized audience. I started a Facebook page where people are getting involved with it. So
Nice.
I kind of just really enjoyed just kind of dipping my foot in this whole kind of content creation. And now it's actually allowed me to get on WGN radio. So Monday nights I am on with John Records Landecker, and we do what is called a food fight, where we kind of pick a topic. And last night I was on, it was cheesecake versus ice cream cake, and I took cheesecake.
Yeah.
No, of course.
We battle it out. So we battle it out, and then the hitch for me to do that was that I can promote Barguments. So it's kind of been this cool little ride that I'm kind of on right now. And it's every time I have somebody bigger on, it kind of opens the door for someone else. And the one sheet names are getting bigger and bigger. And now it's no longer just like my brother, a teacher from CPS.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, John Landecker's been a Chicago radio legend for as long as I can remember.
I would say a radio icon. There's not many icons left that are still alive and kicking.
Yeah.
Dick Biondigo, and I would say Landecker, when I was at WLS, I mean, those guys, Landecker, all hail to a guy like John Landecker.
I don't remember a time when he wasn't around. So,
Exactly. And his daughter was dating Larry David at one point.
Really? Oh,
yeah. So the legend goes even further.
Wow. I didn't know that. Well, as you've witnessed in the first few minutes of the show, Tommy and I tend to disagree on a lot of things. So there's a few topics that we wanted to bring to you just to get your opinion on.
Lob it up.
Our own arguments. I think one of our first ones, Tommy, was your omelet situation.
So,
go on.
All right. So I made at one point a hot dog omelet, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's just an omelet and it's got sliced up hot dogs inside of it.
Okay.
John contends, I believe, that that's something that just should not be made. That's not a meal. It's not something that you should serve somebody. And I am of the mind that you can put anything you want. Basically, my argument is you can put anything you want in an omelet. That's the beauty of an omelet. You can make any kind of omelet you want.
Well, let me ask this counterpoint of John, because what is your extent of what does it not become an omelet?
Well, I think certain vegetables are allowed. Regular vegetables. I think you could probably put in some sausage, some ground.
Why can you put in sausage and you can't put in a hot dog?
But if you can do sausage, why does the hot dog not get a backseat?
Well, because the sausage is going to be in. These are fine lines.
It's still a great. Can I use foul language in this podcast?
Please do, man. Please do.
Sausage and hot dogs are all grounded up pieces of shit from whatever animal they're stuffing it from. So
Yeah.
I think that sausage is a better idea than a hot dog. You may be looking in the wrong spot to argue this one.
Yeah. Could you throw a hamburger in there as just a hamburger?
Why not? Yeah.
If you chop it
if
up,
that's what you look, if that's what you like, I'm not saying that this is like something universal that everybody's going to like. I mean, sure, there's probably a lot of people that might be grossed out at the idea of having a hot dog inside of their omelet. That's fine. But what you're saying is that this is law. That this is like that this is
hold on. You go to any dorm room in the entire United States of America. I guarantee that if you told somebody that I am making you an omelet with pieces of a hot dog, they're going to say,
but that's not.
They're going to say to you this. That sounds like a lot better than what I bought myself last night at the gas station.
Yeah, but in all fairness, you can't compare what you eat in college versus like normal foods. I mean, the stuff I ate in college,
irrelevant.
They legalized marijuana in Illinois. There's a lot of combinations that are floating through these days that probably should have. It's not going to land on the Food Network, but if somebody said, "Hey, I chopped a piece of hot dog and there's an omelet, there's some onion, there's a little bit of maybe some." Some celery salt involved. I'm slamming that thing. A little hot pepper.
I think you've lost this one, John.
I mean, look at this. The Chicago hot dog has everything on it too. That's not necessarily a hot dog.
Not ketchup.
It's got tomatoes. I
didn't say tomato.
It's got pickle. What is ketchup?
So how come and why is it okay to put ketchup, or why is it okay to put tomatoes on, but they say you can't put ketchup on? I am pro ketchup. I am pro ketchup on a hot dog. I'm
not from Chicago. I've never understood the myth. When I go to a hot dog place, I'm get a Chicago hot dog. I know not to get ketchup. But my son, I have a 9-year-old, and if he's like, "Hey, what do you want in your hot dog?" I want ketchup. I'm not going to be like, "You're not allowed to do it."
See,
I don't want you to have. All right, ketchup. Let's do it. Why not?
See, that falls under the same category as putting hot dogs in an omelet. If that's what you like, who cares?
I was going to say,
if you like ketchup on your hot dog, who cares? What is this law? What is this rule? In
2023, I pay high-end money to sit at a restaurant and they serve me raw pieces of fish.
Yeah.
If I am poo-pooing hot dogs and some eggs, my priorities in life have 180 drastically.
All right, I lose this one. All right, the next debate we had again was.
By the way, hold on. By the way, next time you make one of those omelets, send me a picture. Is it an actual folded omelet, or we talking?
I'll tell you what. I'll do you one better. I have a video of me making it. I'll send it to you on YouTube.
I don't have that kind of time. I need to watch.
All right, I'll do a screenshot. I'll do a screenshot of it. But yeah, I
don't need to see you in your underwear going. Here's a package of Vienna Best and some couple of 3 large eggs. Just
Miller Lite in my hand. Yeah, All right.
The next one also involves Tommy's cooking. Tommy what were you making? The noodle incident?
Noodle incident.
Oh yeah. So I was making like a Mexican noodle dish, and in the core, it was my first attempt.
By the way, I don't think there is a Mexican noodle dish.
Well,
this is Tommy.
It's as Mexican as Taco Bell is basically, but it's a pasta. It's basically pasta with taco.
I've never actually thought about that. I guess there are no noodles in the Mexican. There's rice. There's no noodles.
But you can use like cumin and chili powder and things like that in the noodles and stuff, and it's like it's cool, so I'm making this thing, I hadn't quite decided which type of noodles I wanted and stuff, and so I had 2 different kinds, and so I put them both in there and used a mix of these 2 noodles just to see how it was. And
which were the 2 noodles?
They were one was like little masticholi ones. Okay, and then the other ones were, what were they? Were they corkscrews?
Rotini?
They might have been rotini,
so it's not like, it wasn't like a combination of like tortellini and like lasagna noodle, right?
No. I mean, like, they're just they're basically different. This is my argument. They're basically just different shaped noodle. Is really all it is, right? This guy jumps all over me saying that
Well, I am
can't.
Italian.
I don't care if you're from the moon.
It matters.
He says you can't mix the noodles like that. Okay. Now, to your point, now, like if I was taking like, mastacholi noodles or mastacholi pasta and then using like spaghetti noodles or something like that, I could see
that is strange.
The conflict in that. But they're just different shaped noodles,
Dude, it sounds like to me you're on some rough times here, man. If you're doing hot dog omelets and you're doing noodles, I'm actually feeling. I mean, maybe we should like donate to this guy's cause, man.
Well, we'll have it.
Instead of getting angry at the guy, I'm actually feeling bad for you, man. If you're looking at that cabinet, you're going, all I got is mastacholi, and I got these little noodles I'm mixing in, and it's going to be my meal for the night, so I can save my hot dog omelet for tomorrow.
You got to get creative, man. You got some taco seasoning and some noodles. Dude, see what happens.
Inflation's a motherfucker right now, man. I get you.
But you don't mix any noodles like that. If you can mix, then why stop? Then why not mix spaghetti with rotini? What's the difference then? If you're mixing, what's the difference?
They're just if you're going, I can kind of see his point, because if you're just going the small shape kind, then it doesn't matter. Because I bought one from Trader Joe's where there's like a mixture of like 6 different kinds of little kinds of shapes and all that. But if you're doing like you said, John, we're like, hey, we got some spaghetti, and then also a really like a chow fun noodle, like really different kinds of weird noodles, and you're like, all right, well, what's happening here? But if you're doing the same little shapes, I'm okay with that.
See, and even if you were to see, part of it's the delivery though, and it's if you're making like mastacholi and you're making like ravioli noodles or something like that. I mean,
yeah, if one is filled with something and the other is just kind of there, that's double on starch. I don't need that.
Right. Now, John, is it, because here's the thing, serving two different, is it serving two different noodles at the same time, or just cooking them at the same time? Because that's what I did.
No.
I had put them both in and cooked them at the same time. Or is it all of it together? Is it just the whole?
I don't understand your question. You don't want a dish to have two different noodles in the same dish.
So on your plate, you wouldn't want to have spaghetti and have a piece of lasagna too.
Correct.
Now, how can you be from an Italian family and never have had a plate that had a little bit of both on there?
Have you ever had Italian? When my grandmother would make lasagna, there would be no need for anything else. I mean, it's just like pounds of it.
I understand.
She's not going to waste your time cooking two different types.
You're absolutely right. The amount of food is always far greater than the need for that amount of food at these. Because I have an Italian side of a family that I've been to holidays and things, and it is just an unending smorgasbord of just every Italian dish that you can think of. However, you take your plate and you go around, and I'll tell you something, if you don't take a little bit of everything, you're going to hear about it from somebody. They're going to be like, why don't you try that? Why don't you try the mastacholi?
But like my grandmother would never make two different types because it's insane.
Okay, maybe in that setting, but
I'll say maybe your grandmother was doing better financially than poor Tommy.
Well, apparently everybody's doing better financially than Tommy.
I was gonna say, from the list of what's happening here with this poor guy, I'm feeling bad for you, man. I'm feeling bad for you.
Well,
what else do we got my way? Tommy, like I said, for what you are describing, I'm still on your side for this one.
All
right, thank you.
All right.
But John, it's different kinds of noodles is what I'm talking about. If it's just little shapes of noodles and different kinds, I'm with him. But if he said, hey, look, I made spaghetti, and on top of that, I also made a plate of tortellini, then you're like, what are we doing?
But see, I don't see the difference. If you're going to do that, like, where do you draw the limit then? The line.
That's true. Well, if I were to give you a bowl of mac and cheese, half of the noodles were macaroni, half of them were the little shells. Are you going, what the hell is this? Or are you just going to eat it?
I'm going to say that no matter what, if it's mixed noodles, I'm going to say, what the hell is this?
Fair enough.
All right. Well, we just agree to disagree.
That is where I the longer the noodle, the more argument I have with I can agree with you, John.
Okay, fair enough.
I say we just cut. We're going to cut that little voice.
I lead John. I lead Tommy's way.
All right.
The longer the noodle.
All right. And I don't disagree.
I lead your way, buddy.
I do too. But
oh,
all
dear
right.
God.
Okay.
One more here.
Addams Family versus the Munsters.
Ooh.
So I am pro Addams Family. I don't.
You should have said that, but
why?
that's all right.
I'm going to have to make my argument for it, aren't I?
I'm not anti Addams Family. I'm just very pro.
Well, and I'm not anti Munsters either. I like the Munsters.
I will say this: the wife and I have. It's not an argument. She loves the Munsters and does not really like the Addams Family.
That's why I like Joe better.
I grew up liking both. So, yeah. But I mean, first of all, Grandpa Munster is the greatest one out of all of them. By far, he was hilarious, and Herman Munster was fantastic. But then again, I kind of look like what's his face, the bald guy from the Addams Family,
Fester.
Uncle Fester. So there is a part of me that's like, wait a minute, that may actually be my family.
I grew up liking both of them for sure, but as I've gotten older, I've found that I appreciate the writing on the Addams Family and the humor on there. That's actually not a bad little argument there, because I will laugh out loud.
I did always think that it was weird that the Munsters were good and then all of a sudden they just had a random normal human being living with them.
Yeah,
but that was part of the beauty of it.
No, it was all of a sudden she was just there.
They had their own identity, which was great, because it did separate the two of them as close as they were in genre. But I mean, because the Munsters were actually like monster people, And
what's his name? Gomez from Gomez Addams, also the dad in Night Court. So he was always he always made me laugh.
Yeah.
So I will say, to be honest, that's a tough one for you to actually take a side of, but that there's something to both. The music is catchy. I'm trying to think.
Both good intro songs.
Herman Munster was fantastic in My Cousin Vinny.
Yeah, Fred Gwynn. Yeah. And he was on Car 54. Car 54. Where are you? Cut his teeth on that. Yeah, no, I
will say this. And then I'll leave it be here. The Addams or the Munsters were the originals to me. That was like the first of its kind. And the Addams Family was kind of like, here's another step of this process. Why do they all have to be rich? That I never did. They're not eating your hot dog omelets, I'll tell you that much.
Well,
neither one of those guys are mixing noodles. And
the Munsters weren't rich though, because he had to go to work every day with his pail of
Yeah, but he was in that giant mansion.
Yeah, look at the size of that house.
Opened up.
Well, yeah, he had a nice house. I mean,
and that house, the house inside is the same house for Eva Longoria in Desperate Housewives.
Really?
So, is it really?
It's the same house.
Wow. Oh, wow.
So if you're doing the math on it, I would just say for the originality, someone thought the Munsters first, but if you put either one of those on, they are fantastic. And the Addams Family movies were good. There was never a Munsters movie.
Oh, yeah. Well, not a good one, at least.
Wasn't there a Munsters TV movie or something? I thought
it was not a good.
There was a TV movie, but
it was not a good. It was not good. No, it was.
I'm taking that as a win, though.
You want to like.
I will give you the nod. John. I will take the Munsters.
There will be no shutout.
All right, but I take the day. So
I was just saying, you may take the board, but I'll give John one. I'll give him one.
Well, I've got a real quick one too. Tommy and I actually agree on this, but this is for my sisters. What about mixing cereals? And I don't mean like different types of Cheerios. I mean like cornflakes with Cheerios.
I've done different I do different combinations just because I get bored of just the one cereal.
Would you do like Fruit Loops and Lucky Charms?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah,
no problem.
All right.
Here's the deal. Here's what we'll iron this one out. Can we all agree that cereal is dessert?
No.
Cereal is a dessert.
Cereal could be a meal.
It's a meal, but it's mostly
a cake could be a meal if you really put your mind to it.
Lucky Charms, you're not feeding anybody in an old age home Lucky Charms. You're not feeding them Frosted Flakes, and you're sure as hell not giving them Fruit Loops.
It wouldn't sit inside them for very long, so it's not a good idea in the first place.
Just like you're not going to feed somebody in an old age home a giant piece of cheesecake or anything else. They're having fruit. They're having something high. They're having oatmeal.
Yeah.
They're having that kind of stuff. So when you start to think about exactly what Lucky Charms is and what Frosted Flakes are, It's just sugar on top of sugar. It's just whether or not you want the fruity kind or you want the chocolate kind.
I think because John and I were both of the mind of no mixing cereals.
No mixing cereals.
I will say this.
You guys are no fun.
I will say this though. I do think that like if you're talking about like the difference between like Fruit Loops and and Lucky Charms or something like that, it is. It's just different. It's just sugar presented in different ways. Okay.
Exactly.
But like if you're taking say like Wheaties and mixing it with I don't know, Cap'n Crunch. Well, actually, that might not
I would do that
either. Yeah,
I
but
was gonna say, Wheaties
as I was saying it,
normal.
I was like, well, actually, might not be that bad. But I don't know.
But they're doing that right now. If you walk the next time you walk down a cereal aisle,
Oh no, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it exists. Yeah.
I mean, there is now Frosted Flakes with Lucky Charms. There's a chocolate Frosted Flake.
Right.
There is all kinds of combinations that I don't even have to do myself. They just notice that everybody else is doing it.
Now here's the thing, just so I'm not coming off hypocritical. I do not personally. I would not want to eat mixed cereals. However, I would not begrudge somebody who did. Unlike John, who we begrudge people who are adventurous and willing to try to expand their horizons and their palate.
Although I gotta say, it's kind of hypocritical of you to knock down these weird combinations you're throwing at me and then poo-poo the cereal, which is probably it's more
I'm just saying,
logistical.
but what I'm saying though
it is way more logistical, and people have thought of somebody mixing Fruit Loops with Wheaties. Then they said, "Hey, you know those packages of hot dogs?
Yeah, let's throw them on the eggs. Yeah,
and you know what? We got a couple noodles. Why don't we just throw it all in one shot?" Those are words people don't utter. But can I mix my Lucky Charms, my Frosted Flakes? Those are uttered.
Yeah.
Why don't you throw your Lucky Charms in your omelet?
I'm just saying that's a personal preference, but I don't begrudge. I don't begrudge somebody like John. John thinks you should be burned at the stake if you mix your noodles.
But if you think about it, Lucky Charms is what? It is marshmallows mixed with a shitty brand cereal.
Right,
so
like it's
that
like
already
a Cheerios.
that already is the combination.
And that's true. That's a good point. That's a very good point.
That's where you're teeing off at.
All right. Well, then I concede to you then, my friend. So
that's why we brought you
I think that's about the most valid point.
At the end of the day, I win.
Yes. No, that's an extremely valid point.
I don't know if I'm the voice of reason, but when it comes to food, I will pretty much try them all. Well, guys, thanks for having me on. This is fun.
Yeah, man.
We love to have you back on after we because a few more podcast episodes. I'm sure we will have more debates, and we would love to have you back on.
Anytime they're bubbling up, have a bunch for me. I'm ready to knock them out.
Well, awesome. Before we let you go, tell everybody where again they can find out your stuff, buddy.
Barguments. It is located anywhere you get your podcast and anywhere that you want to go ahead and have some fun. Again, it's just me and a buddy and a different guest every week. So enjoy it while you're out there. And also, I do voiceover stuff. So if you have a business or you know of anybody that has a business and they want a voiceover for either their phone systems or YouTube videos or any kind of, they have an agency, if they have cars or any kind of small business, I do that stuff. And you can find me at danlevymedia.com. And I also help create podcasts too. So if you got questions, hit me up, danlevymedia.com. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, man. We really appreciate your time.
Before I let you go, I gotta say, Barguments is perfect for social media because, as you know, I answer all your arguments on social media. And there's a lot of great debates and those things. So I encourage everyone to check out.
Hey, John, I encourage you and I encourage your audience of this podcast and Tommy, you as well, sign up for it. And if you guys got these kind of barguments, throw it in there. Let everybody kind of chew on these. These are the ones you guys threw on me is pretty good. So, Tommy, sign up. Threw the hot dog and a.
I will. I'll throw it out there and see what everyone else says.
And John, throw up the Addams Family Monsters. Put all that on there. I'm always looking for people to. I encourage everybody to throw those on there, and I'll even take some of these and put it on the podcast myself because these are fun. So, Barguments are always good. So hit that up. Barguments. It's on Facebook as well.
All right. Well, thanks again, Dan. We appreciate you.
You got it, boys. See ya.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, Dan.
Later.
All right, everybody. There he is, Dan Levy.
The voice of Chicago radio. Again, if you've listened to any Chicago radio in the last 20 years, maybe even longer, or even if you called up some places and got voicemail, you've probably heard his voice, possibly his wife, Jill Urchek. and future probably their son DJ, because I'm sure he's going to go follow that path. But what a fun time! That was a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, no, it was cool, and it's I hate bringing up old arguments that I thought we had settled, but I do like being proven right and getting
Well,
confirmation on that as well. So
see, even though I lost a couple of the arguments, I still I thought Dan was the perfect one, because Barguments is really a fun podcast. It's fun on social media. Before we go though, these are some old Barguments. I thought we can go through them real quick.
okay, these
Cheesecake versus ice cream cake.
these have been on the show.
These have been on Barguments.
Okay, cheesecake versus ice cream cake.
Yeah,
Ice cream cake.
cheesecake, hands down.
Okay,
Okay.
next.
Wow, these arguments are very cheese heavy for some reason, but grilled cheese versus peanut butter and jelly.
Peanut butter and jelly.
Grilled cheese all the way.
Really?
Because grilled cheese, you can
Yeah,
do
you
so
make
many
you
things.
you seem like a grilled cheese. I love grilled cheese, but
Well, I like
yeah,
peanut butter and jelly.
yeah,
I don't like
okay.
ice cream cake though.
I'm not
Okay.
wild about it, but I like it better than cheesecake. So
Now this next one is probably the biggest landslide for me.
okay.
Cheese curds versus cheese fries.
I go cheese curds.
Yeah, landslides. My reasoning is I love French fries. Absolutely love French fries. The only time I put anything on them is if they're not very good and they need something to kind of kick
Yeah.
them in. Ketchup, ranch, Parmesan garlic, something like that. But a good French fry, like a Portillo's fry, or like a fancy, not even a fancy restaurant, but anyone that does like the fresh fries,
Yeah.
I mean, those don't need anything on them. And cheese especially. And I love cheese, but not on fries.
It's funny because I'm the same way. Well, now I like, putting ketchup on fries sometimes. I mean, like if I get fries at Portillo's, I'll probably eat half of them without any ketchup on, and then I'll take a few and dip some in or whatever, but it'll probably go I think you're right. If you have a truly good fry, you're not going to put anything on it. So I'm with you there. But there's something about cheese in particular that I just don't like mixing cheese and the fries. A cheese curd is a different
Right. Yeah. Because
delivery system. So because I like, like if I had a potato or something like that and I had like some shredded cheese and some sour
yeah.
cream on there, whatever, I would like that. So one would think that the cheese and a fry would somehow work too. But for whatever reason, cheese fries, I just, because I've been to Portillo's and people are like, oh, I gotta get the cheese fries. And I'm just like, not me, man. I'm like, just give
No.
me they're nice and crisp and done just right.
Oh,
Yeah,
they're
don't mess with them.
they're
Don't
the
mess
best fast. If you call it fast food, they're the best fast food fry out there, I think.
I'm with you, man. Portillo's is heaven.
Well, there's our three arguments,
Okay,
or there's three arguments that we settled.
great. Well, it was it was a lot of fun having Dan on, and we'll have to I'm sure, like you said, we'll have plenty more arguments as time goes on.
Now, if you want to have more fun, invite his wife Jill on and do a Cubs versus Sox debate. And if you take the Cubs side, you're in for a debate.
Yeah, see, here's the thing. I'm a big Cubs fan, but I'm not educated enough to have a real toe-to-toe debate with somebody about Cubs versus Sox. My biggest reason for aside from just my family being Cubs fans and growing up around it, which is how most people kind of end up in their teams. My biggest thing is I've just always thought the Cubs had the better uniforms and the better
Oh
stadium.
God,
They
I like
do.
the
Red, white,
color.
and blue with the blue pinstripes and stuff. You can't beat
Yeah.
it. The boring ass gray
So you cheer
they
for
that they
you cheer
wear
for
for the White
Jersey.
Sox. And I mean the black, like when they wear the black, that's cool. But I mean,
So
like
you cheer for laundry, is what you're saying.
I think if you're gonna be a professional, it's like wrestling. You got to have good gear, man. You can't come out there in some boring gray. And I'll tell you something. I don't like it when the Cubs wear their grays. Every team has their grays, and I hate it. I don't like the Cardinals. Their grays look stupid. I don't like it. Don't wear gray out on the field. You got to pop, man. You got to look good. And the Cubs, nobody looks sharper in the major leagues than the Cubs do in those uniforms. So
There you go. All right.
But I don't know that that qualifies me to go toe to toe in a real serious debate against the Cubs versus the White Sox. So I know my place and will stand down on that fight.
All right.
So that being said, I did want to mention that we have expanded our reach a little bit as far as the distribution of the podcast. We are on not only Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're on Google Podcasts, Audible. I mean, at this point, you'd be hard pressed not to be able to find us on a podcast platform. So,
And YouTube.
So, if for some reason one of your usual portals to us is down or whatever, you can rest assured that you'll still get us somewhere else. So we got our year wrap up on Spotify. Apparently 83% of our listeners would like to see John released.
I knew this was coming.
We had 72% this last year who demanded $1 for every minute of their time that was wasted listening.
All right, I think we should just wrap it up at this point.
I am. This is the Spotify wrap up, and
I mean this episode.
And it's so. But that aside, we did have some good numbers, and interesting to see what episodes were significant in our last year and the guests that we have. So for everyone who's been on the show, not only this last year but in general, thank you to everyone. But this last year we had a good year.
We did.
It's not over yet, but just looking at our stats, it's fun to see. So
yeah, and we finished. Well, we didn't finish because we still have a few more left. But Dan was a good, brought a lot of energy.
Yeah. So thanks again to him, and for the Johngy or Else podcast, I of course have been who else but Tommy Else. With me as always is my constant irritant, who I will be in many more Barguments with, Mr. John Robleski.